be green. Check 1, 2. Does it come? There. That was awkward, wasn't it? I counted to 60. It was about 1 minute of silence. Felt uncomfortable, didn't it? Just 1 minute. 1 minute. And we were starting to Jones a little bit. It's like, gotta have something going on. How many wanted to grab their cell phone? Who's this bozo up here standing for 1 minute? What's he doing? 1 minute of silence. Come back to this, but I wanted to start out by sharing that I was over there in the meditation. This sort of came to me to do that, and I think it helps emphasize the point that I want to make today. I always like coming out to Manhattan because I get the opportunity to drive through the Flint Hills. Sometimes I take 24 out here, but I decided to, and I like the interstate views probably better than I do the back roads in this particular case. I love driving down through Wichita, and I love to come out here and just to sort of be inspired. Maybe living here and seeing it all the time, you don't have the same ongoing appreciation for maybe somebody who sees it every so often. Maybe you do, and if you do, that's fantastic. That's wonderful. But it does speak to me every time I drive out here. Seriously, how many times have I spoken here in the past? 20, 30, 40, I'm not even sure. And even today, I stopped and took probably 30 pictures on the way out here. Pulled over on the side of the interstate. Just took a moment to appreciate the vistas, the views, wondering what it was like 150 years ago when there was no tractor trailers rolling through this area. There was no busyness. Our lives are always caught up in busyness, and we're trying to remember this morning, when was the last time I spoke here? I'll say too long ago, maybe? But it's probably at least been a year and a half. I know that Rochelle was still pregnant with her baby. And I'm not even sure. Maybe I was here. That's the last time I saw her. She was still pregnant with her baby. Maybe I was here one time after that, but it's been quite a while. So what's been going on with Chris besides jail and prison? Just kidding. I'm totally kidding. See? Need to keep up with me. Now, what's been going on with Chris? Well, in 2016, I was divinely led to leave my position as the music director of Unity of Independence and take up the responsibility of leading. And we were into football and basketball and playing outside, and the last thing we wanted to do was go in and read our Bible. But I started to become really embarrassed by this idea that I had not, every week, I knew it was something that I should be doing. And so for months, I could not raise my hand. So I made a point. I said, this week I'm going to do it. So I took my Bible and I put it on my nightstand, and I said, every night before I go to bed, I'm going to roll over and I'm going to read a verse or two out of this Bible. I'm going to do it. And by golly, I did it. Next Sunday when he asked that question, look at me. I'm the best Christian in here. Woohoo! It made me feel good inside. It really did. I wasn't doing it to show off anybody or anything like that, but it really did. It was like I felt like I needed to be diligent with my faith, and I'm grateful for that he asked that question, because I did start reading the Bible regularly. And I read it, 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 and I read it. And a couple of weeks later, another boy raised his hand too, and I thought, wow, this is great. So I guess it's how it's supposed to work. We lift each other up. We inspire people. But imagine when I went back to church later last year, and even actually it happened this year, when one of the ministers talked about the beginning of Genesis, and he pointed out something that had eluded just an obvious observation. And I thought, I've read the beginning of Genesis 100 times. I can almost recite the first couple of verses, by rote. But he pointed out something that just, what? It never dawned on me. I don't know why, and if I missed that part of class, I'm sorry. So I'm going to read the beginning of Genesis, and then I'm going to point out and share with you what he read with me. In the beginning, God created the heavens and the earth. Now the earth was formless and empty, and darkness was over the surface of the deep. And the Spirit of God was hovering over the waters. And God said, "Let there be light." And there was light. God saw that the light was good and separated the light from the darkness. God called the light day and the darkness night. And there was evening, and the morning was the first day. You've heard it before, right? But we jump down to verse 14. And God said, "Let there be lights in the vault of the sky that separate the day and the night, and let them serve as signs to mark the sacred times, and the days and the years. And let them be lights in the vault of the sky to give light on the earth." And so it was. And God made two great lights, the greater light to govern the day, and the lesser night to govern the night. He also made the stars. God set them in the vault of the sky to give the light to the earth, to govern the day and the night, to separate the light from the darkness. God saw it, and it was good. And there was the evening, and there was the morning, the fourth day. And what this minister pointed out to me, and this was in a very traditional church that I recently visited. Well, if the sun and the moon and the stars weren't created to the fourth day, what was that light on the first day? Wow. What was that light on that first day? As I meditated on this whole passage and what it meant, the word that kept coming to me was wisdom. That this light was wisdom. Maybe God was uncomfortable in the silence like we were. Beginning of the service. was something stirring in the creative spirit. Now we can talk physically or metaphysically about this, but it did bring to light that there was a difference in this light. So I thought, and God said, let there be wisdom. And what was the darkness? Maybe the darkness was knowledge. You know the difference between wisdom and knowledge, right? Knowledge is, you know the stove is going to burn your hand. Wisdom is not putting your hand on the burner. So, there is a difference. We are looking at, in the beginning of whatever new experience that we want to have in our life. Let there be wisdom. Let there be that silence. Let there be that void before we just rush into something. What is that saying? Haste makes waste. And so I thought I would reread some of this, and I would see how this reads for you, how you feel about this. And feel free to disagree with any of these thoughts. But I felt divinely led to share this, so I'm going to share it. And God said, let there be wisdom, and there was wisdom. And God saw that the wisdom was good, and he separated the wisdom from the knowledge. God called the wisdom day and the knowledge night. And there was the evening and the morning, the first day. Gives it a different feel, doesn't it? Gives you a feeling of what was really being created here was an understanding of this physical universe. But isn't that every time you look in the Bible and you look through the scriptures and you see the great leaders always were in the silence at some point in time. They were able to be isolated. Paul was in prison. He spent many hours in prison praying and reflecting. Jesus spent 40 days in the wilderness praying and fasting. The silence is golden. The silence is the language of God. The silence is in the beginning. So let this metaphor of wisdom feed you today. If you think about the things in your life that you want to change, or the circumstances in your life, go into the silence. Even Unity's very foundings was Myrtle Fillmore immersing herself in 8 hours of prayer a day. I can't imagine. I just can't even imagine 8 hours of meditative, affirmative prayer a day for several years. And you know what's amazing is that she didn't go into prayer with the idea of creating a worldwide movement, but she did. Her prayers and her silence led her to the foundation of the Silent Society of Prayer. We know as Silent Unity. And that still continues to be the main sustaining force of the whole ministry. They take over 1.5 million calls a year. And donations flow in daily to that prayer ministry. The silence is the language of God. So what is your silence calling you to do? Are you silent enough? Can you take a moment to open yourself, to be that open vessel to receive? So let's hold that in prayer as we sing our next song.